Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen. Sayyidina wa Habibina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. All praises are for Almighty Allah, the one who has bestowed so many favors and bounties upon each and every one of us. From amongst His favors and bounties is sustenance, provision that He has bestowed upon us. The wealth that Almighty Allah has given each person, whether it be a small amount, whether it be in abundance. If Almighty Allah had not decreed for it to come to you, it would have never come to you. Whatever has been decreed for you will come to you. Whatever is not decreed to you, nobody can give to you. This is how it works. This is how the rizq, the sustenance, the provision that Allah has allocated for each person, this is the rule that Almighty Allah has set within this dunya. For each person, in their entire lifetime, how much they will get of each sustenance, Almighty Allah has decreed for us already. You cannot get more, nor will you get less. Whatever is going to come to you is going to come to you. Now, whether that comes to you in a way of halal or haram, that will be based on our own actions. If we stay away from the haram and stay on the halal path, that same amount will come to us. But if we take the wrong path, then that money will come to us, but because of our actions, it will turn into haram money. So instead of stressing over that, a person should keep their means of livelihood as halal. Every single aspect should be halal. There should be no deception, there should be no cheating, there should be no haram aspect within our livelihood at all. If we stick to that, then the money that is coming, the sustenance that is coming is purely halal. And then when it comes to the zakah time, when it comes to giving the compulsory charity in the way of Almighty Allah, then you will see the full benefit of it. The word zakah, it has two meanings. Number one, to increase. Number two, to purify. When we give money in the way of Almighty Allah to charity, when we take out our zakah money, Almighty Allah blesses the wealth that we have, which leads to the wealth being increased. We may see that by giving X amount in the way of Allah, physically there's a shortage. The wealth has physically decreased. But two things will happen. Number one, you have given that in the way of Allah, so in the account of the hereafter, it is permanently set. Number two, the physical money that has decreased within this dunya, you will see within no time, Almighty Allah will give you so much more. That money is going to increase. Almighty Allah opens up the ways. When you only have one source of income, Allah will open up another source. If you have multiple, Allah will open up even more. Or the source of income that you have, Almighty Allah will give more barakah in it, more blessings within it. But what happens once in a year? That which is fard upon us, compulsory upon us, we give zakah. When we have our savings, money that has been saved up, 1 year has passed and our date of zakah has come. And how does that work? The time we reach puberty and we have the minimum amount of money known as a nisab, today's rate, £379. That is the nisab. Every day it changes, but today's calculation, £379. A person who has a minimum of £379, they've reached the age of puberty. Now 1 year passes from that date that they reach the nisab. So let's say 1st of January. 1 year's time, when 1st of January comes, the zakah will be due. But two things need to happen. You need to meet the nisab amount, and then 1 year needs to pass. And the date that we set Islamically won't be 1st of January, 25th of April, any date like that based on the Gregorian calendar, but rather the Islamic calendar. The 1st of Muharram, 10th of Muharram, it could be any month. It's not in Ramadan that zakah must be given now. No. This is a misunderstanding, a misconception. The first time you reached the nisab, that is the date that you write down. And then 1 year's time, if you still have more than the nisab amount, then the zakah will be due. What we find, especially in the Western world, is we have children, their birthday money, Eid money, parents are putting money into their account. So an account is open for a child. Now £50 and £100, £200. Before you know it, that child reaches the age of puberty, but they may have £500, £1,000 in the account. But nobody's paying zakah. Nobody's paying zakah. Once they grow up, one day when they find out about this ruling, they realize, I haven't paid zakah for the past 10 years. So this is the responsibility of the parents. The parents have the duty at that time to educate their child and to help them pay their zakah. Even though that child is not working, not earning anything, but that's saving because it is more than the nisab amount, that minimum threshold, and they reach the age of puberty, and 1 year has passed and that money is still there, then you will need to take out 2.5% and give it to the poor. The condition is that 1 year needs to pass. Like mentioned in hadith of Jami' al-Tirmidhi, حَتَّى يَحُولَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَوْلِ. 1 year needs to pass. But within that 1 year, you're going to see the money go up or down. Let's say somebody has £1,000. Next year, the first time they meet the nisab amount, and now next year, throughout the months, there are 10,000 come, 5,000 come, 20,000 come, 10,000 go, 5,000 go. The money's been up and down throughout the year. But when it comes to the end, when 1 year passes, as long as they did not go to zero, but it was above zero, that final amount, 1 year's time, that is what you check. 1 year's time, you see, okay, £500 is my total savings, you pay zakah on £500. It's not that £1,000 has come, okay, now 1 year for this 1,000. 10,000 has come, 1 year needs to, no. It's too complex. That's not the Islamic way. The Islamic way is the money will be up and down throughout the year. You got expenses, you got bills to pay, money's coming, money's going. When the year comes, that date anniversary of the zakah, when that year comes, 1 year has passed, you will see how much do I have, how much stocks do I have, how many items have I purchased to sell for business, how much cash do I have, gold and silver do I have. Put everything together. If it's more than the nisab amount, you will pay 2.5% of that. But the Quran mentions in Surah Ali Imran, verse number 180, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَبْخَلُونَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ هُوَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ بَلْ هُوَ شَرٌّ لَهُمْ سَيُطَوَّقُونَ مَا بَخِلُوا بِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Those people, when it comes to zakah, they're stingy. I don't want to pay zakah. I can't afford it, even though they can afford it. Zakah is fard upon them. They're being stingy to give it. in the way of Almighty Allah to the poor, they think by keeping that money, huwa khayran lahum, it is good for them. Almighty Allah states, bal huwa sharrun lahum, rather it is bad for them. It is bad for them. Why? Oh Allah, sayutawwaquna ma bakhilu bihi yawm al-qiyamah. Because that money that the person abstained from giving zakah upon, Almighty Allah on the day of judgment will turn it into a snake. A snake. And that snake will go around the neck of that individual. And it will continue to punish that individual. And it will keep saying, Ana maluk, Ana kanzuk. I am your wealth. I am your treasure. That money that you didn't want to give to the poor, that wealth that you were holding on to, I am that wealth now. And that snake will keep punishing that individual who abstains from giving the zakah to the poor. Because it is fard upon us. At the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he became the Khalifa, two big fitnas took place when he became the Caliph. Immediately, that had taken place. So upon becoming the Caliph, he saw two issues are taking place, major issues. Number one, there are those that are falsely claiming to be prophets, such as Musaylamatul Kadhab, who claim to be a prophet after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number two, people, a group of people are rejecting the zakah and saying it is not fard, we are not going to give zakah at all. What did Sayyiduna Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu do? The greatest leader after all of the prophets. The greatest person after all the prophets. What did he do? He waged war against them. He waged war. He tried to bring them to the path. They rejected it. He tried and tried. Ultimately war was waged against them. Zakah is something which we must not take lightly. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ثَلَاثٌ مَّن فَعَلَهُنَّ طَعِمَ طَعْمَ الْإِيمَانِ. In the hadith mentioned in Sunan Abi Dawood, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that there are three things. If a person does those three things, that individual has truly tasted the taste of Iman. What are they? مَنْ عَبَدَ اللَّهُ وَحْدَهُ مَنْ عَبَدَ اللَّهَ وَحْدَهُ. One who worships Allah alone, no partners whatsoever, worships Allah alone. وَأَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. And he knows with certainty that there is no God, there is no deity worthy of worship except Almighty Allah. وَأَدَّى زَكَاةَ مَالِهِ طَيِّبَةً بِهَا نَفْسُهُ رَافِدَةً عَلَيْهِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ. Every year that person, the third thing, every year that person takes out the zakah money that is due, that is obligatory upon him or her, and then he pays that. In what state? In such a state that he is cheerful, he is happy, he is earnest, that he has got the opportunity to give in the way of Almighty Allah. One who does that has truly tasted the taste of Iman. Normally what happens? People are dreading it. Zakah time, X amount of money is going to go. What am I going to do? Instead of being happy and joyful that the opportunity has come for me to act upon a fard, that thing Almighty Allah has made fard upon me. This is why we must not take zakah lightly. If somebody has debt, they will minus the debt from their bill, the zakah bill. So the full amount that you have, let's say you have £10,000 savings, but you have £9,000 as debt. You minus the debt, now zakah is only due upon the 1,000. If you have items that you've purchased to sell, such as imagine somebody purchases 10 cars in order to sell them, or buys 5 phones in order to sell them, buys properties purely with the intention to sell them. When the zakah time comes, you will include them into your zakah, the amount. But if the intention was not that, you purchased 10 properties but were not with not the intention of selling them to make a profit, but rather to rent them out, then zakah will not be due on the amount of the actual properties, but rather the zakah will be due on the amount, the rent that is coming through, if you have that rent at that time. Likewise, when it comes to zakah, every single thing that you have, whether it be shares in a company, whether it be investments, whatever stocks you have, you must include everything into the calculation. Everything which is there as an investment, you include into the calculation. But the things that are there for your personal belongings, houses, cars, clothes, because you have the intention, these are my personal stuff, no zakah is due. But if you purchased it with the intention to sell, then zakah will be due. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ الْمُبِينَ.